For an age untold, the system knew only itself. A central star, a hearth of incandescent fire, held its family of worlds in a perfect, gravitational sway. Their paths were scripture. Written in the dark ink of spacetime, ellipses of elegant, eternal return. Mercury danced in a fever dream of heat, Jupiter spun in its marbled majesty, and Neptune slumbered in the deep, cold twilight. It was a cosmos of clocks, a dynasty of repetition, where every ending was just a prelude to the same beginning. The system was vast, but it was also profoundly alone. Defined by the comforting certainty of its own solitude. Then, it came. A whisper from the interstellar dark. Not a prodigal comet returning to the fold, but a true stranger, an anomaly named 3I/Atlas. It moved with a speed and an angle that spoke of another sun, of origins impossibly distant. Its path was not a gentle loop, but a blade's edge arcing through the familiar quiet. A trajectory that promised no return. It was a visitor with a story the system could not read, a guest who could not, stay. Can a presence so transient leave a permanent mark? Can a universe of predictable cycles find meaning in a connection destined to be broken? Now, let us translate this cosmic dilemma into the language of science. When we gaze into the cosmic dark, we map the heavens through the language of gravity and motion. The members of our solar family are bound by closed, elliptical orbits, paths of eternal recurrence. They are held fast by the sun's gravitational embrace. But an interstellar object like 3I/Atlas follows a different geometry of fate, a hyperbolic trajectory. This is the signature of a true wanderer. It is a path traced by an object moving with such tremendous velocity that our sun's gravity can only bend its course, never capture it. It is the celestial equivalent of a greeting and a goodbye spoken in the same breath, a journey with a beginning light years away and an ending just as far. Initially, we mistook this visitor for one of our own, a long-period comet emerging from the Oort cloud, the icy shell of our system. But as it drew nearer, its light told a more exotic story. When we analyzed the vaporizing gases, its outgassing coma, we found a chemical fingerprint unlike our native comets. It wasn't a familiar mix of water, ice and dust. Instead, it was rich in frozen nitrogen, a composition that whispered of an origin story written in a colder, alien script. This wasn't just any wanderer, it was a fragment of another world, likely a piece of a distant, Pluto-like planetoid shattered in some ancient cataclysm. It carried within its icy heart the frozen memory of another star, a ghost of a world we will never see. It was a messenger, and its message was its very substance. The visitor crossed the silent frontier of Neptune, a threshold where the sun is but the brightest of stars. It passed the slumbering Titans, Uranus and Saturn, whose gravitational fields noted its passage with a subtle, mathematical curiosity. This was not one of their flock. The ice giants and the great gas lord, Jupiter, conducted their ancient, orbital prayers, and felt in the stranger's trajectory a foreign verse. The local comets, born of this system's primordial dust and water, stirred in their distant reservoir, sensing a kindred form but an alien soul. This visitor was carved from a colder winter, a deeper night than our own Oort cloud had ever known. It wore the void like a cloak, and its silence was the silence of a different genesis. As it journeyed inward, crossing the great divide of the asteroid belt, the sun ceased to be a distant beacon and became a presence, a force, a furnace. The delicate equilibrium that had preserved the visitor across untold millennia of interstellar travel began to fray. The warmth, faint at first, then insistent, soaked into its frozen heart. This was not the gentle light of its long-dead parent star. This was a ferocious, elemental fire, an intimacy for which it was not made. Its body, a tightly bound aggregate of nitrogen ice and exotic dust, had been a perfect vessel for crossing the dark. But a vessel is not a home. The unraveling began as a whisper. Deep within its core, ancient molecules of nitrogen, locked in a crystalline slumber for eons, began to vibrate. The sun's embrace tightened, and the whisper became a hiss. Plumes of gas erupted from its surface, not the gentle outgassing of a familiar comet, but the frantic, explosive sublimation of a substance pushed past its endurance. It began to breathe out its very essence, a spectral cloud of its own being. This coma was not a halo of glory, but a shroud of memory, each particle a syllable of its lost history. Within that expanding veil, astronomers on a distant blue world saw the chemical light of its soul, reading the story of its birth in the language of its death. The visitor was speaking its name, and the cost of the utterance was its own form. It spun, not in a dance of celestial grace, but with the subtle, wounded wobble of a structure coming undone. Its ancient bonds, forged in the unimaginable cold of a different cosmos, were failing. The sun, in its desire to know the stranger, to pull it closer and illuminate its secrets, was dissolving the very pages on which that story was written. The unraveling accelerated into a final, incandescent crescendo. The visitor's wounded spin became a pirouette of self-destruction. The system, from its nearest burning heart to its furthest frozen worlds, bore silent witness. There was no sound, only a profound and final giving way. The ancient shard of another cosmos, a traveler older than mountains, surrendered to a warmth it could not endure. In a silent, radiant pulse, it fractured. Here, we witnessed the beautiful, brutal paradox of cosmic inquiry. The jets of sublimating nitrogen, erupting unevenly from its surface, did not just create a halo, they acted as chaotic thrusters. They torqued the visitor, spinning it faster and faster. This mounting rotational stress, combined with the thermal shock of our sun's radiation, was more than its fragile structure could bear. Deep fissures raced through its frozen heart, and it broke apart. In that moment of annihilation, 3I/Atlas offered its most profound revelation. As the fragments drifted apart, each a smaller ghost of the whole, they exposed fresh surfaces of primordial ice to the sunlight. For a brief, brilliant instant, our instruments captured the purest possible spectrum of its core, the undiluted truth of its origin. We had to lose it to truly find it. The price of knowledge was the object of that knowledge itself. It was a story that could only be read as the book burned, a message delivered in a bottle designed to shatter upon arrival. The visitor didn't die in a blaze of glory. It simply let go. It became a constellation of glittering dust, a spectral trail of what it once was. Its singular, mysterious identity dissolved into a shared, luminous memory, a final, selfless act of testimony. The ghost of 3I/Atlas now follows a new path. Its fragments, too small to see, have been captured by the very gravity that broke them. They drift now not as a singular being, but as a fine, invisible dust, a subtle enrichment of our own cosmic landscape. An echo of another star system now permanently courses through the veins of our own. The encounter is over, but the exchange is eternal. The system was not a passive observer, it was a participant, and it is now the keeper of a sacred relic. Is this not the nature of all profound connection? We are solar systems, each of us, orbiting the stable certainties of our own lives. And then, a visitor arrives, a person, an idea, a fleeting season of love, on a trajectory all their own, destined for a different horizon. They burn brightly in our sky, and for a moment, our world is re-enchanted. And if they cannot stay, if the very intimacy of the connection means they must depart or be changed beyond recognition, what then? We are not left with nothing. We are left with their light woven into our fabric. We carry the atoms of their wisdom, the memory of their warmth. Every brief encounter is an act of cosmic seeding, leaving us irrevocably altered, forever richer for the visitor who couldn't stay. Look up at the night sky. The great celestial bodies are not the only story. There is a finer tale being told in the invisible dust between the worlds, the legacy of forgotten suns and brief encounters. You, too, are a vessel of such legacies, a living echo of every soul who ever passed through your life.